Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about a miracle comeback Bears victory. We'll be talking about our first place Cubs and our first place White Sox and probably sprinkle in a few things along the way. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the Stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season isn't going on right now because of COVID, just like other things, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com, getting yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, signing up for season tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Whew, just taking a breather in here because I have an old heart, and it was on edge today. I don't know about you.
It was like the famous Bill Swerski super fans from SNL, just having another heart attack, just pounding your chest.
How many does that make? That's a baker's dozen.
Almost done. Almost done.
We'll get to more later, but some of the additive effects of everything going on. But the Bears, we should jump right in with the Chicago Bears. I think everybody in the Bears fandom, from writers to podcasters to radio talk show hosts to fans, I think everybody on the Bears fandom spectrum, all were looking at this game going, Bears victory, and we're going to see good Mitch. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah, I think a lot of people were anticipating victory. I know that a lot of people outside Bears fandom had the Lions winning this game, just looking at the bets, but I think it's fair to say that most Bears fans were anticipating a win because they have a good history against the Lions, especially recently with Nagy, and Trubisky has played very well against the Lions, and the Lions are not known for their secondary, so it was the ideal matchup for Mitch to try to kind of get things going against a defense that, coming off a year, was like dead last in yards given up passing. I mean, the defense just was not very good, period. Yeah, they added a few guys, but they had a few guys injured, so yeah, I think there was a lot of optimism going into this game. I think that's very fair.
Yeah, and the optimism was there. Even after this first game, I think the opinions on what the Bears will look like after today varied the gamut of, being an abysmal team to being a playoff Super Bowl contender and everything in between. But we all started on the same foot. Is everyone expected the Bears to win today? And man, it did not look good to start.
No, in fact, I kind of gave up on it briefly early in the third quarter when they went up by 2 scores. Really, what a big turning point, at least, at the time, it ended differently, but a big turning point towards the end of the second quarter when the Bears made the stop and they got the ball back and then they went 3 and out. Detroit got great field position and they immediately went down and scored the first touchdown of the game. And you saw a lot of what you saw last year. On the offensive side of the ball, you saw them drive midfield and then just completely stall out and settle for field goals. You saw some third down, fourth down plays that either resulted in a dropped pass, a mistimed jump, or just a flat bad throw by Trubisky. And the Lions, they started taking advantage of a Bears defense that was kind of starting to falter a little bit. They weren't putting pressure on Matt Stafford. Stafford was finding his groove. He was throwing darts. And, keep in mind, they didn't have Galladay in this game. So, things were looking pretty bad mid-game, going into the fourth quarter, really.
Yeah, and I want to start off by saying is I watched all of the Bears game, and then I watched parts of several other games. And for the most part, every game, and I watched almost all of the Texans-Chiefs game. And one thing is really evident to me, and that is that there's a lot of sloppy football being played, and the preseason's necessary.
Yeah, I mean, we kind of expected that. When you don't have a preseason, especially for veterans who are used to having it, it's different. It's very, very different. So you're going from playing in camps to playing an actual other opponent who you don't know. So there's obviously going to be a factor of that throughout the entire league. I mean, even the opening night with the Chiefs and the Texans, you could definitely see the rust around. I mean, Kansas City shook it off pretty well, but there was definitely rust around, and especially with Deshaun Watson and his guys, you saw his guys, take some bad routes. They dropped some catchable passes, and yeah, I mean, you kind of saw it all around the league, and it might take a few games really to kind of hit a stride for anybody.
Yeah, and I tweeted out after that game that one thing was really evident, and if you're going to win games early on, which you're going to need to if you're going to compete for postseason, is you need to win those early games. And I think in this year, the way that we haven't had a preseason and the way the rules were set up a few years ago about limited numbers of padded practices and scrimmages, you're going to need to establish a running game. And the teams that establish a running game are going to be in a better position to win. And we saw that with the Chiefs. The Chiefs established a really good running game in that game. It opened up some things. And, Patrick Mahomes did Patrick Mahomes things, but his deep passing wasn't great. He was completing a lot of screen passes and slants that were taken for big yards. And a lot of that was opened up by a really good running game that they established. So, we saw a team that is the Super Bowl favorite and coming off of a Super Bowl victory. And you're seeing that they needed to establish a running game in order to get into their passing groove with pretty much the same offensive players and the same exact scheme, and they needed this time. So other teams where they have new cogs or new systems and new coaches and new players, whatever the case may be, establishing that run is really important. And the one thing I can say about the Bears is they ran the ball pretty well today. Still would have liked to have seen some more runs, but I think their commitment to the run, the way they ran it, was light years better than last year.
Yeah, and that's one thing I really want to talk about, because if you would ask me what probably the best overall part of their game was best today consistently, it was the run game. You saw both Montgomery and Tariq Cohen have some really nice runs, especially early on. You saw Tariq Cohen really get going up the middle, and give the line some credit. They made some nice blocks for them. And you saw David Montgomery, you saw him able to gain some few extra yards when he was being tackled. As he was being wrapped up, he was able to kind of keep chugging and bounce off a little bit and get a few extra yards. I was really happy with the run game today. If that is more like what we could see in the future, then I think that spells good things for the Bears. Last year, it was bad. And it wasn't necessarily because David Montgomery was bad. It's just the play calling wasn't as good. And keep in mind, we have some new offensive coordinators, some new offensive coaches, and maybe you're starting to see some of the effects of that right now. Really happy with the way the running game was going in the game. They didn't put up incredibly great numbers in terms of yards, but they made their runs count when they did.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I would say I was happy with the run game because of where it was last year. Now, if you ask me, oh, am I happy about the run game, period? I'm going to say, no. There was positives, but the positives being that they established the run much more. They were much more willing to run 3 times rather than pass 3 times. And you saw the yardage per carry. So David Montgomery averaged 4.9 a carry. Tariq Cohen averaged 5.9 a carry. And Cordero Patterson averaged 4.8 a carry. So you saw that as a team, they averaged, 5 yards a carry, which is really nice. But then you look between pass receptions and running attempts, David Montgomery only had 14 touches. I would think minimum you would want to see 15 to 20. I think.
Now, do you think the injury had anything to do with that they were kind of trying to play it safe a little bit? Because we didn't know he was going to be active until, a few days before the game?
I would think that was a possibility, except for the fact that Tariq Cohen didn't get that many touches either. So, but you had 13 rushing attempts from David Montgomery, 7 for Tariq Cohen, 4 for Cordero Patterson. So that's only 24 run attempts compared to 36 passes. So I still want to see, in a close game like this where you ended up coming back to win, I think those run numbers need to be bumped up a little bit. You're number one, you're on the road. Number two, it's a close game. I think those run numbers need to bump up a little bit. And two is, between David Montgomery and Tariq Cohen, you need to get these guys more touches. Let's see. Tariq Cohen had 9 touches. Cordero Patterson had 5 touches. If David Montgomery is your featured back, I think he's got to get 15 to 20. If he was a guy like, I don't know, Todd Gurley or something, you'd want like 20 to 25. But I think 15 to 20 is probably the range you want David Montgomery, and I didn't think he got there. And I think there should be a few more touches for Cordero Patterson and Tariq Cohen. Sure, I liked their run plays, but I think it would be nice to see them more also now that they're being incorporated into that run game, to see them a little more, I guess, throw in a few more gadget plays or trick plays now that teams are gearing up to defend them as actual running backs. You know what I'm saying? Before, if you brought in Cordero Patterson as in the backfield, everyone would go, okay, it's going to be a gadget or trick play. But now that he's actually being used as a running back, it would be nice to throw in a couple more, misdirections, trick plays, gadget plays type things to get him into space.
I get what you're saying, and that's fair. I also can't help but wonder if the number of runs had to do with the score itself. When you're down by multiple scores, it's probably more tempting to pass, right?
Oh, absolutely. And Matt Nagy, his natural tendency is to want to go pass. Believe me, if Matt Nagy had the cachet of a Belichick, Belichick has gotten away a lot of times with having minimal running plays and using screen passes and dump offs as faux running game. And I think Matt Nagy, if he could get away with it, would totally be okay with that. He's a very pass happy play calling coach, but he doesn't have the cachet. Like he doesn't have a Super Bowl title. He's coming off of a subpar season. A lot of people are talking about his job being, on the hot seat. So he needs to to placate everybody and establish that run game more. So it's got to be in the front of his mind. But I agree with you that being down multiple scores and the game seeming like it's over, you know, of course, passing is going to be the forefront in your mind.
Well, I definitely think we can then kind of transition to the biggest elephant in the room, the one that everybody is talking about, and that's obviously our quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. I mean, okay, watching football is essential because numbers can be misleading. I mean, if you look at just yards and touchdowns versus interceptions, you see 3 touchdowns and no interceptions, 242 yards. And you say to yourself, that's not bad.
Wait, you add into that. I mean, I agree with you up to this point, but I want to add to, I know what point you're going to make. Mm-hmm. And I want to make the numbers on paper even seem more skewed wrong. Is his quarterback rating was 104.2.
Wow.
So please continue. I'm very happy you're bringing this point up.
So those look okay. And well, I'll talk about the goods with Mitch. But we do have to, mention that those first 3 quarters were not good. They were not good. You saw some missed throws. You were watching, cringing when it was 3rd down. They didn't even convert a 3rd down until late in the 3rd quarter. I mean, that's pretty nuts. One of the big mistakes I thought early in the game was it was 4th down. They were going for it. Ted Ginn Jr. was open, but threw behind him and it was batted away. If he would have let him on more and was a bit more accurate with the pass, that would have been a 1st down. We have to really give Mitch Trubisky some credit for leading the comeback. He was a big part of that comeback. He was able to take advantage of a Lions secondary that had lost their cornerbacks. We'll talk about the good in a minute, but I'm just saying is that there are still some noticeable concerning things here.
So I think we've seen through the 4 years of Mitch that he's much better throwing against man coverage than zone. Mm-hmm. He gets confused by zone. He can't make the proper reads. He throws many more interceptions. And against man, it's a lot easier for him because he just goes, "Oh, I'm going to throw it to the open guy." And
right.
And the Lions, despite the fact that they've seen bad results of throwing man coverage, even with a Darius Slay, who's albeit a little long in the tooth, a good cornerback, and Mitch still beats their defense. Now, you also see if you watch the film that against a zone defense that he really struggles, and the Lions just continue to do what they do. It's Lions gonna Lions, and we expected a lot more of that today, and this is a really depleted secondary for the Lions. Mm-hmm. So they were already without one cornerback, and then their big money cornerback that they brought in free agency. He went out. So you were just really struggling to find guys to play the position, and Mitch was still struggling, and that's sad.
Yeah.
I mean,
Porters and, I think this is where we get the meatball out. And I know there's going to be a lot of varying opinions, but obviously it's not going to happen for next week. But what I was ready to angrily rant about on this show had the Bears lost this game 23-6. I was ready to say, you know what? Just put in Nick Foles next week. I don't really think he's going to do much more than Trubisky, but how can we not make a change when it's still evident things are not good? So that I think that comeback even so, I'm not really sure Nagy would have the balls to put in Nick Foles yet this early, but there is a question wondering, did this game kind of save Mitch for the time being?
The fourth quarter saved Mitch Trubisky, and that's kind of been his calling card for his career so far. Is everyone wants to launch him into space, and then he makes a big throw, or he makes a comeback, or he has one good game, and everyone goes, okay, well, let's wait and see. And all he's doing is biding his time rather than making those progressions. And I think for me, the biggest disappointment today was he's had some terrible footwork in his career. Mm-hmm. And he spent the offseason working exclusively on his footwork with a quarterback guru. And he came in and his footwork was still dog shit.
Yeah, it was kind of like seeing somebody whose shoes were soap bars on a oily floor.
I mean, the way his foot position is when he's trying to throw is infuriating. Like, I just, like, that's like 101 in like Pee-wee football, is how when you finally get kids that are like, okay, now it's actually, we're learning how to play the game. Like, that's how that you teach them the fundamentals of throwing the football. And Mitch's footwork is bad, and it leads to so many bad throws. Mm-hmm. And you talked about him, is we saw a bunch of bad throws. The one to Ted Ginn Jr. was one. The one on the 1 yard line to Cole Kmet, which
that was bad.
He was open, and even if he doesn't get a touchdown, that's a first down.
It's a first down, yeah.
So you either have a touchdown if he falls backwards, or it's a first and goal from the half yard line. Either way, you're in a good position, and he throws just an absolutely abysmal pass. And sometimes we don't know if did somebody run the wrong route, and we get that with Anthony Miller quite a bit. That's like his fatal flaw is running the wrong route. And we're like, was that an Anthony Miller or was that a Mitch Trubisky? Because either one could be, is a realistic possibility. But that was just a turn and catch, and Mitch just throws it, like it's a pitch out of Major League by Charlie Sheen.
Just a bit outside.
So that was really frustrating. But then the throw into the end zone to Allen Robinson, where they missed the pass interference call and he didn't catch it. Like, that was a good play. You're like, all right, we got good Mitch, because he's throwing, he broke out of a potential sack, rolls out, throws a sharp ball into the end zone where nobody can intercept it. It can only either be caught or incomplete. And you're like, all right. You're into that. But, and I think the reason Mitch has been so successful throwing off the run rather than from the pocket is because his footwork is so bad. And when he's running, he can throw with bad footwork because he's throwing on the run to the side with his strength, not across his body. So it's taking away half the field. He's throwing. He's not worrying about his footwork, and he's naturally stepping into things because it's just the way you run. Running sort of takes over rather than footwork and throwing, which is not always natural. And he just naturally is running and throws. But when he's actually in the pocket, he has to work up with his foot mechanics and his body mechanics. And he's just not capable.
Yeah, it was definitely frustrating. But I guess we could talk about the goods, though. I mean, we got to give the guy credit. He helped lead an epic comeback, throwing 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. That ball to Anthony Miller on the game winner, that was a thing of beauty.
That was great. The Javon Wims one was great.
Mm-hmm.
The touchdown to Jimmy Graham was good. The touchdown that was almost a touchdown to Jimmy Graham, the one where they said it went to the
one or the 2, yeah.
And that was a good one. So you did see some good things. And we talk about fourth quarter Mitch, and you're like, okay, why is Sean McVay not wearing socks? Sorry, I'm watching the Rams game. Why is he wearing no socks with long pants? All right,
Must be hot.
But it's you get fourth quarter Mitch, which has been pretty good for the most part, but you got to take first quarter, second quarter, and third quarter with fourth quarter Mitch, and those average out to not a good quarterback.
He's a closer. He's not a starter.
Yeah, it's like, can we send in Nick Foles for the first 3 quarters and then Mitch for the fourth? Like, can we do that? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there you go. There you go.
Yeah, we have an opener and a closer.
A quarterback. Because that's just how the Bears do it.
Yeah. So, the bads for me in this game, the big bads were threefold. One, first 3-quarter Mitch, bad. Second was Matt Nagy play calling, bad. And third was Bears pass rush, bad.
Mm-hmm. They only got 1 sack, and that was, in the fourth quarter?
Yep. And there was very, very few hurries. I didn't count them, but there were not many hurries.
No, I mean, I was wondering for a while through that game, where's the pass rush? And again, that was an issue last year. Where was the pass rush? And, I know Robert Quinn was out, and getting him back should help, but you still have Mack, and you still have Hicks. You still have pretty much everybody else, and they still really couldn't touch him.
Akeem Hicks did not look like the Akeem Hicks before the injury last year. Just didn't look like the same guy. And Mack, there was times he disappeared, but there was a lot of holds that were just not called against him, and it's so infuriating.
Typical.
It's so infuriating. The first one was the first pass of the game that the Lions had, and he beat the guy around the corner, and the guy had his arm around his neck from behind and pulling him, and they didn't call it. And it's just infuriating because it's so blatant. It's so blatant. If they would call these, they're almost as good as a sack. Because there's a 10-yarder. Sure, they get the down back, but they go 10 yards back, and they're not calling them. And I don't understand why. They're very blatant. They're not ticky tack. There was at least bare minimum 4 blatant missed holding calls where Khalil Mack got held.
Yeah, happens every game. It's pretty typical.
And it's just frustrating because you couple that with he wasn't getting to the quarterback as is, and you weren't getting that push up the middle. And I think honestly that's where a lot of the frustration came from, because there was not plenty, but there was a bunch of times where they collapsed the pocket, but you didn't have that push up the middle. And so Matt Stafford just stepped up and made the throw. And that's been a calling card of New England, is even when New England didn't have a good offensive line, people would get around on the outside. They would push everything around, Brady steps up in the middle and completes those passes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you need to be able to, collapse that pocket from the middle as well as the outside. So the quarterback has nowhere to step up and throw. And once they realized that they were not getting the pressure that they thought they would get, is Matt Stafford just sat back there and picked apart the Bears secondary.
Yeah, the middle of the game, like I said earlier on this show, the Lions offense really got going. And, I mean, you just got to give some credit, too, to Matt Stafford's arm talent. He's got terrific arm talent. And when you can't get pressure on the guy, that just spells bad things for you. And we saw that. I mean, they had 2 really quick drives. And, when they scored the field goal to make it 23-6, you saw Adrian Peterson start to run on you. 35-year-old Adrian Peterson starting to look like somewhat of his prime, running on you again. We have plenty of memories of him going bonkers against the Bears, but, their offense was clicking for a while, and, not getting that great pressure, it really hurt. And, going back to Akeem Hicks, I'm going to attribute that to just rust in unusual circumstances. I feel like if he's healthy, he'll come around eventually. I just think that maybe without usual types of camp and with no preseason, it just might have affected him a little bit in this first game, and he might need a game or two to kind of get back into things. Who knows? That's just kind of how I feel right now.
I hope, because remember when he didn't have training camp and then came in against the Packers and got a butt sack?
I thought that was Mac.
Oh, you said Akeem Hicks. I'm sorry.
Akeem Hicks, yes.
Yeah. I'm hoping that. I'm really hoping that with Akeem Hicks, it was, just looking rusty. Danny Trevathan looked slow.
Yeah, he did look slow today.
Roquan Smith, for most of the game, was pretty absent. I hope they clean this all up. And really what started to happen was they weren't getting pressure. I mean, you saw the Bears defense holding. And then once the Lions realized the Bears were not getting any pressure, suddenly they're like, oh, let's throw it. Let's throw deeper passes. And then that started opening up the running game. When the running game started having success, that opened up the passing game even more, and the Lions just felt really confident that we can run and pass. And the Bears have been at their best when they've been able to force teams to be one-dimensional, and that's typically been shutting down the run and then forcing them to pass. You get pressure on the quarterback, and it makes it easier job for the defensive backs and the safeties. And I don't necessarily think you had bad play from the defensive backs today. It's just they were really on an island today.
Yeah, they were. I do want to talk quickly, though. I think it's worth mentioning Jaylon Johnson, the rookie. Obviously there were times where you could definitely tell he was a rookie, but I think you got to give him some credit for some of the plays he made. I don't remember exactly when it was in the first quarter, but he made a really nice play downfield. And then the very last play of the game, he got up there and he tips the ball away to end the game. So, he's obviously going to have some growing pains, but I think he's talented enough to make an impact. And I do want to give him credit for the good things he did in the game. There's obviously clearly some things he needs to grow on, but, credit him a little bit. And, obviously you had Kyle Fuller had a pretty good game too. Those are probably 2 of my favorite defenders of the game today for the Bears.
Yeah, Jaylon Johnson had, he had a whole rookie season up and downs in one game, which was funny.
Yeah.
I know the play you're talking about is that was that deep ball, and he had blanket coverage all the way down. And you're like, okay, I like this. The one thing I didn't like is he didn't turn his head. So had that been a better throw, there would have been probably a good shot that they would have thrown a PI flag because he never turned his head. But that's that's a young cornerback type mistake of not turning your head. But overall, I think he did a good job. There was the one play where he didn't make the tackle on a run play. But he had some good coverage, and you look at his size, and I don't know what he is, what they list him as, height and weight, but he looks big. He looks like a big guy. You look at some of the rookie and second year cornerbacks, they look pretty small. Kyle Fuller still looks pretty small. But you look at Jalen Johnson. All right, here we go. He's listed as 6 foot 212. So he's a sizable defensive back, and he looks it. He looks like he's a grown man. He's already in his adult body. Doesn't have to grow into anything.
Exactly.
But I was happy. I think I would still like to see a veteran cornerback maybe brought in, but it made me a little more confident in Jalen Johnson. And if we add a pass rush, like an actual pass rush, I think we're going to be seeing some spectacular plays from him because, he was able to hang with those receivers. And if quarterbacks are throwing without being able to step into a throw with a clean pocket where they're actually throwing under duress, I think you're going to see him with a bunch of pass breakups and some interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, big part of that, like I said, is getting Robert Quinn healthy to add to that pass rush, and hopefully you get him back as soon as possible.
I don't know exactly what's wrong because Robert Quinn had the personal issue, which he was held out of camp for a bit. And then he came back, and then suddenly there was an ankle. And I don't know where the ankle injury happened. Nobody talks about how it happened. He just suddenly had an ankle.
He just showed up with another ankle in his hand. He's like, here's an ankle. Oh, we got to put you.
And so you're just like, okay. So I don't know. Hopefully he's back next week and he's full participation in practice. Because clearly Barkevius Mingo is not giving us the pressure that we need.
The Mingo did not eat your baby. There's one other thing I really wanted to bring up. Well, two things really, kind of brief. I don't know if you had this on your slate, but I figured I'd bring it up. One, who I thought had a really weird game? Jimmy Graham, because most of it was not good at all, but he did catch a crucial touchdown, and he did make another play to get right to the goal line. But we saw some poor timed jumps and resulting in incompletions. Just a lot of the body work from Jimmy Graham did not look good today, but he did come up with some clutch plays.
You're right. You're absolutely right. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit. And I don't know if it's just the timing from not having worked with Mitch all that much. You were limited number of practices and you were splitting the reps between Foles and Trubisky. And some of it is age, I'm sure. When you're younger, and you don't realize this yet because you're still really young, but when you're younger, you just sort of do things like you're athletically. You're just like, I just did that. That's what I did. You don't even think about it. But when you get older, you got to think about these things. Just this week, I went to they had the basketball courts open at the city park at the end of my block. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go shoot some hoops. And I was literally just meaning to, just shoot around a little bit. And there was a group of high school kids having a full court game. And they were like, hey, we need another one. Do you want to play? I'm like, oh yeah. And there was times that when we were in a half court set, I was really good. I didn't miss any of my shots. I had a couple of block shots. I did good defense. But when it was going up and down the court, It was just, I couldn't keep up. But the moment that it just really hit me, my age, is, so the park setup is one half of the court is regulation 10-foot rim. The other one's like 8 or 8.5 feet. I think it's 8.5 feet. And I had a breakaway because I didn't run all the way down because it was a fast break the other way. So I was still down almost. And the person missed the layup. Kid on my team grabbed it and just threw it down. And when I caught it, he just started yelling, "Dunk it, dunk it." And I started to jump, and I was like, I don't know. Like, all I could think is I'm going in. I'm like, I don't think I can dunk it. Like, I know for a fact I jumped up and had my hand well high enough to dunk it, just shooting around. But I'm like, I really hesitated. I'm like, can I do this? And you start thinking about it. And I was like, I'm just going to lay this up. And I just get a little soft finger roll. And my whole wrist was like over the rim and dropping it into the basket. But I was like, I don't care how high I was up. I just didn't have the confidence to jump up there and dunk it. And I think that might be happening a little bit to Jimmy Graham, where he's just like, I know I can do this, but I'm second guessing if I can do this. And that's when you don't do it.
Yeah, I mean, age is undefeated, and I was kind of hoping that your story was going to go to a place where, you were trying to keep up huffing and puffing so much that you ended up just like barfing all over the court.
Luckily, that didn't happen. And there was one point where I think it was my most it probably was not that embarrassing as a viewer, but playing, it was embarrassing, where I started to run down for a fast break, and the guy on my team got the ball stolen, and it went back the other way, and I couldn't just stop and go the other way. Like, I had to slow down and then stop and then actually pivot and then start up again. And I was like, oh my God, like, I can't stop and start like I did. But my saving grace is I made it all the way down, and I jumped up and I blocked the shot from behind. I was like, oh, old guy does it. Old guy does it. But yeah, there was some rough moments in that game. And I think the roughest was, afterwards I came home, ate dinner, and then took the dog for a walk. And I like gimped around the whole way walking the dog.
The dog walked you.
I was just like, why is my hip not feeling like it's in the socket properly?
That's a bad feeling.
Why does my back feel like it's shaped like a semicolon? But part of Jimmy Graham, I think, is a little bit of age, a little bit of rust. Another part will go back to, why did Matt Nagy have him in there as an inline blocker so much? That's not what he does. That's not what he's good at. It's not what he wants to do. It's not why you brought him in.
No, you brought him in to be a target.
Yeah, you brought him in there to catch passes, and you saw it towards the end of the game. Like, you didn't target him very much. I mean, how many targets did he get? Like, let's see. Cole Kmet got targeted once. Jimmy Graham got targeted 7 times with 3 catches. So why did you keep so many running or tight ends? And why did you keep a guy who's not really a tight end? He's just a big wide receiver, and make him inline block so much? I just don't understand. Like, if you want to have one inline block, have Harris stay in inline block.
I mean, that's more why you brought him in.
Yeah. Or Cole Kmet. Like, I just don't understand. And why didn't you target him more? We made fun of the tight end production last year, and a lot of it was because of injuries and just bad players that were forced to play. But now I'm starting to think of, how much is it Matt Nagy's offense not focusing on these tight ends? Like, I was expecting we would see tight ends just targeted left and right. I mean, I like Christian Jones as a linebacker, but that guy is not going to cover Jimmy Graham.
No.
Sorry.
No. I mean, it's probably a little column A, a little column B. I mean, Matt Nagy, we saw the play calling hurt last year, but it was not all his fault. And I think you could say the same thing with tight ends. I mean, by the end of the year, we were using practice squad tight ends, so I don't think you could really expect much from there anyway.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, I mean, this is a high level overview, but if you're the Bears, you have to look at it as the Lions linebackers can't cover Jimmy Graham. Okay, so if you bring the safeties down to cover the tight end, that's going to create one-on-one situations without help with your wide receivers. And you're like, okay, well then that creates mismatches there, especially considering that they're already down cornerbacks. It's like, why aren't you capitalizing on this? Like, that's the thing that drives me crazy about Matt Nagy is he won't take what's there. He won't take the obvious. He wants to be like, well, no, I want to do what I want to do. And you're like, why? Like, Bill Belichick has so much success because he goes, well, if this team can't stop the run, I'm just going to keep running it until they can't, either we win or they learn to stop it. And then we do something else. Like, he will just do whatever it is that you can't stop. And,
yeah, that's true.
And Matt Nagy just won't take advantage. I don't care if it's low-hanging fruit. If I'm playing Madden NFL, it doesn't translate per se, but you're like, if I'm running the ball and they can't stop this sweep, guess what? I'm going to run that sweep 7 times in a row until they learn to stop it, or, I'm up by 45 points. End of the day, you just want the win. I don't care how it looks. If people are like, oh man, you didn't run it at all. Like, well, we won 47-6. So shut up. That's all that matters. If you run past 47 times and don't run it, and you lose or it's a close game, then you give reason to criticize. But if you take what the defense gives you or capitalize on their shortcomings, then nobody's going to criticize you. It's your game plan. You go in there and be like, hey, you know what? They're short on corners. We're gonna force their safeties to come down and cover our tight ends, and then abuse those corners on one-on-ones. Sure, they might put Trufant on Allen Robinson, but Allen Robinson's still going to get some wins, and then whoever the next man up probably is not going to be able to cover Miller, and then you send in Mooney or Ginn and take away the other safety because you go deep. You're creating mismatches, and they just don't do it.
Right. No, I mean, you said it perfectly. It's one of the more frustrating things.
And then you did you're running the ball effectively, and you've got opening drive, and you've got a 3rd and 1, and you try to quarterback sneak it.
Oh, that was ugly.
That was bad. But the ultimate badness is when it's you've got the Lions on their heels, and you're like, okay, there's 2 minutes left, and you're gonna call a timeout to preserve time on the clock to get the ball back and try to score before halftime, knowing that the Lions are going to get the ball to start the second half. I'm fine with that. Up to that point, I'm perfectly fine. But then things do not go the way that they expected.
Putting it lightly.
And at that point, you're like, all right, now Matt Nagy should be thinking, instead of trying to go for it, he needs to run time off the clock and set up a good punt and prevent the Lions from scoring. That should be his focus at that point. And instead, he runs a play that stops the clock. They don't get the first down. The clock stops. It gives the Lions plenty of time and timeouts, and they march down the field and score a touchdown. And then they score a touchdown on the ensuing drive at the start of the half. And suddenly, without you touching the ball, they scored 14 unanswered points.
Right, and the most frustrating thing about that entire thing was that you knew the Lions were going to get the ball back to start the second half.
I'm all for being aggressive at the end of the half. Either if you know you're getting the ball, trying to get that momentum, or if you know the other team's going to get it, trying to, pad a lead or get a lead going into the half. But I'm all for being aggressive there, but you have to be smart.
Right.
You have to be really smart, because if you left yourself that much time, there's plenty of time for them to drive down the field, especially when you've got some quarterbacks that can, Matt Stafford is a guy that will throw interceptions and he'll make some boneheaded plays, but he has one of the most talented arms in the NFL.
Absolutely. And you saw that today.
And you saw him throw some darts. So, I just, you don't want to put him in a position where he's throwing against a rookie cornerback playing his first NFL game, 0 preseason, and with a game on the line like that, and sort of, either use up all that clock or be aggressive and get down there and try to score. And the play calling on that, when they got the ball back, I was fine up until the point, and I was just like this is frustrating. Mitch shouldn't be throwing deep in this situation. He should be doing some intermediate things, moving the ball, get into field goal range, and take a shot once we slow, we have the game to a point where, they don't have enough time to drive down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. One more positive I wanted to bring up. It's not really that big of a deal, but I just think, all things considering, even though it was nothing albatross, just a quick shout out to Cairo Santos for making all his kicks. I know they were like 28 and 35 yards and 3 extra points, but you know what? I was dead terrified every time he had to try to make a kick, and he made all of them. So, good job. Yeah,
I'm happy. I don't know the extent of Eddie Pinero's injury. Cairo Santos, we had him previously, but he was injured kicker himself. So you're just like, we didn't know what we had, but he's a guy who, he's a guy who has a good reputation and he's a good pedigree. So, I was happy that they brought him back, put him on the practice squad, because even if you know that Eddie Pinero is your guy, if he's not healthy, he's not worth keeping on the roster. So this worked out. You still keep Eddie Pinero, and you have Cairo Santos come in and be healthy and kick for you until you can get Eddie Pinero healthy.
Yeah. And I think that's clearly one of the reasons early on they went for it on 4th down, because it would have been like, a 56-yard field goal from that point. I don't think you trust Cairo Santos to make that kick, even though he did hit some 50-plus yarders in the pregame. But yeah, it made sense why they went for it there. And, he was able to be set up for some easier kicks, and he drilled them. I mean, they were very right down the middle, good kicks. And I'm not going to try read too much into that, but kicking's a sensitive subject around here, and I was glad to see him able to make all the kicks he was supposed to make.
I mean, here's the thing about attempting long field goals. It's not just, do you make it or do you miss it? It's what happens afterwards. Mm-hmm. So if you kick, let's say, you're kicking a 56-yard field goal. They get the ball back and you miss it. They don't get the ball back from where the line of scrimmage was. They get it from where the ball was kicked, which is 8 yards back of that.
Right.
So it's a big swing of field position.
You'd be putting them in midfield.
Yeah, you're essentially, if it's a 56-yarder, yeah, you're almost putting them at midfield. That's you can't do that. So if you've got a kicker that hasn't kicked much because he wasn't your kicker going into this the game, he was your practice squad guy. Like you don't feel confident about letting him kick in a game winner or end of a half or something. You're like, okay, no problem, but like, I don't know if it's a game winner. I feel like you're like, okay, 56 yards. We saw him hit it. We feel like he could hit it from there if need be. Like we wouldn't do a Hail Mary. We would try a 56-yard field goal.
Mm-hmm.
But when it's in the middle of a game, then you have to consider, all right, well, do we want to position ourselves into, if we miss this, letting the other team have it from midfield?
Right.
So those are the things you have to consider. It's not always, be scared to kick it. I mean, if it's different case if you've got a Hall of Fame kicker or, a guy that's just been money for you for years.
Like Robbie Gould.
Robbie Gould still, those long kicks, didn't always have the best track record with the Bears. He was like 40, 43 in money. But after that, you were just like, fingers crossed. But I'm talking about like, some of the, the Hall of Fame type kickers that you've had on your team. Like Matt Nagy has had a rough kicking history with this organization.
Mm-hmm.
I would be gun shy too and not want to put myself in that position.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Let's see, what else do I have here? No pass rush, Lions being marked on the field. Oh yeah, I put, how do the Bears respond after the Lions score 14 unanswered points? Not only 14 unanswered points, is they scored, went halftime, got the ball back, scored a touchdown. The Bears never even touched the ball. How do they come down? They get, I think, 2 first downs and then they punted away. So they scored no points. They responded with no points. And I think that was a position where the Bears needed to put points on the board.
I mean, luckily in the end it didn't matter, but yes.
I mean, just to swing that momentum, you really put yourself in a hole there.
Yeah, and you don't want to rely on putting yourself in a hole like that in the future. And, thank goodness that Swift dropped that pass from Matt Stafford in the final 10 seconds.
I mean, that Matt Prater missed the 55-yard field goal.
That too.
Is had he made that, the Lions win the game because they were well within a chip shot field goal at the end of the game.
Right.
They kick that field goal and they win. By missing that, they were, they were 4 points down, 4 points down, and you can't kick a 4-point field goal, so they have to get the touchdown. But had he made that 55-yarder, which was well within his range, and it's not like there's wind inside the dome. That makes it a chip shot field goal. The Lions win the game, and all the bad things that happen get exacerbated, and you probably have some frustration in the locker room. But you win the game, and partly on the Lions giving you it, with a missed field goal. And you're right. We had the touchdown, the surefire touchdown at the end of the game. Hit the guy in both hands, right in the center of his chest, in both hands. All he had to do was catch the ball and fall backwards. And catches it, goes into the end zone, just drops it, fumbles it, drops it. And that was essentially the game.
Yeah. Because like I said before, right after that was the final play of the game, and Jalen Johnson made that nice play. They didn't rush a lot of guys. They only had 3 guys, everyone else in prevent defense in the end zone to really lock things up, and they did a good job of that. And, it was nerve-wracking, that's for sure.
There was one play, one of the last couple plays on that last series on defense, and Matt Stafford overthrew a receiver, and Kyle Fuller was the closest guy to catching it, and it went off his fingertips and dropped it. And I just screamed. I was like, man, this is like against the Packers when he dropped that interception that would have won the game, and instead the Packers came back and won.
It's funny, from the initial angle, like in real time, I'm like, okay, that was a nice play to tip it away, where it kind of looked like he just kind of reached his hand out and was able to kind of tip it away out of there. But then you looked at it from another angle and you go, oh, he could have caught that.
Sure, it wouldn't have been an easy catch, but
it was catchable.
It was catchable. It hit him in the fingertips.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, I literally texted my friend. I was like, this is going to come back and bite us in the ass. And when I saw that pass that got dropped for a touchdown, I saw that and I was like, there it is. There it is. Kyle Fuller dropped interception is going to cost us this game. And that the Lions lioned it. If that was the Packers, if that was the Patriots, if that was
the Steelers, the Saints,
nobody's dropping that, and the Bears lose this game. It is because the Lions outdumbed the Bears.
Yeah, thanks for that, Lions.
But there's one more thing I want to talk about. It's not necessarily Bears Lions per se, but Jonathan Vilma was awful as an announcer.
Oh yeah. Yeah, no offense, but yeah.
I like Jonathan Vilma as a football player.
Yeah, he was good.
And it wasn't just that he fumbled around, because I can say, all right, well, I listen to myself record this podcast, and when we did Hot Mic and things, it's like I get, fumbling around on player names and, as some of the plays go on, but his analysis was bad.
Yeah, there were some times where he was going, that's a good ball by Trubisky. That was overthrown, but that was a good ball. I'm like, what?
Yeah, his analysis was bad. Like, when what's his face that used to be the Cowboys quarterback,
Romo?
Yeah, Romo. When he first started as an announcer, it was weird. He was like Rain Man. Like, he was so bad just talking about the play, but then when he was actually just sitting down breaking down what's about to happen or what just happened, he was just genius with it. His understanding was on the next level, where you're like, holy cow, I've literally never heard an announcer talk about this like that and have an understanding. And we've had like a Troy Aikman, we've had Hall of Fame guys be announcers before that played the game at an exceptional level, clearly understood the game at an exceptional level, but have never been able to just diagram things the way that Tony Romo did. And he was rough though on the mic, and it took him a while to get smooth. So you're like, I can buy into it, because the things that he did do well, he did so well. You were like, I'm willing to wait out him getting used to being on the mic. But Jonathan Vilma just he wasn't good on the mic, and he just didn't bring any good analysis. And you're like, oh, with how many ex players there are, this is the best you could get.
Yeah, to add on top of that whole experience thing, boy, was it weird with no actual fans in the stands. That was really noticeable, I think, watching these NFL games. I mean, the fake crowd with the digital just looks awkward. It was like that hodgepodge of cardboard cutouts and fake digital fans, and it was noticeable. And if you go back and you watch the highlights from the last Bears game at Ford Field last year on Thanksgiving, and you compare that to what we saw today, you kind of forgot just how many people are normally on those sidelines. Because wow.
Yeah, it's true, and I don't like. I mean, I much would prefer the fake fans in the crowds than just empty seats. Yeah, it just looks weird. But the piped in noise and just it was just weird. It was weird, and by the end of the game, I sort of gotten used to it. And at least with the Chiefs game, there was enough fans in the seats where you could they could focus it on the camera.
It was natural noise too.
Yeah, and you're like, okay, I can they can show fans on there, and it's only when they do the wide shots that you notice how empty it is. But with this, it was oof.
Yeah, kind of sad.
Yeah, so I mean, this game, the Bears were honestly really lucky to pull this one out, and I didn't think they would. I mean, they scored 3 points in the first quarter, 3 points in the second quarter, nothing in the third quarter, and we thought that they were going to lose 23-6, and they scored 21 points in the fourth quarter, 21 unanswered points to win this game.
Yeah, it was a great comeback, and I was pumped when they won this game. And you know what? I'm just going to look at it now and say I'm going to put all the negatives aside and just enjoy the hell out of this win, because that's what we deserve to do. It was one of the better wins that we've seen, not in terms of way played, but just coming back from a deficit. We've seen the Bears lose those types of games. It is good to be on the side where you're down multiple scores into the fourth quarter and you come back and win. It was exciting. It was fun while excruciating through most of it. I mean, that was a very memorable comeback. And, like I said, give Mitch Trubisky credit for the stuff he did do well. The throw to Anthony Miller was gorgeous. He made some very nice throws later in that game. So 1-0 for the first time since 2013.
It's funny. I didn't get as excited for this win as I thought I would, just because it was so weird, and I was so down in the dumps about the gameplay. Not just that they were losing, but just the way they were losing and how the defense wasn't coming up with big plays, and that the offense was just sucking like they did last year. And I was just like, I can't. I was almost ready to turn this game off. And when they came back, I was like, okay, they scored a touchdown. And I tweeted out this like, yay meme. It was like a yay.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, so what? They're just, it's just going to make it look like it's closer than it was. And when they scored again, I was like, okay, all right, well, they're making it interesting. I'm at least stay and watch. But when they took the lead, I was like, okay, I'm not going to get too excited because
there was a lot of time left.
There was a lot of time left, and I was like, Matt Stafford's going to drive down. And then as it started getting less and less time, and they used up their timeouts, I'm like, okay, they might win this. And then when they got close, I was like, all right, it's over. And I started to just preemptively text my friend who had a kid's birthday party for his son, his son's friend. And I was like, so he wasn't watching the game. So I was texting him updates, and I was getting ready to text him like, all right, Bears lost in the last play of the game. And then when they dropped that pass, I was like, oh man, it was such an anticlimactic thing. And you're like, did they drop the touchdown? And I was when because wasn't a flat out drop. Like he caught it, turned, and then dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, that's it. F it. It's done. It's over. And then like he dropped it. I was like, okay, well they're going to get another crack at it. And then they didn't. And I was like, is there 1 second left? Are they going to have another play? And I was like, nope, that's the game over. And it just happened so fast. I didn't have a reaction. Like if it was the Bears scored on the last play, or they gave up a touchdown on the last play, where I could be either excited or deflated, or it's a kick to end it. Like where you're like, that's it. This is the decision. Like, there was too many ups and downs and happened so fast that I just didn't have the time to react. And I just came out in the living room just like straight face. My wife assumed they had lost, and I was like, they won. She goes, what? She's like, I just went in there a minute ago and they were getting their ass kicked. So next up, we've got the New York Football Giants. And we don't know what they look like yet.
No, I feel like it is a team they still do need to beat, but I could see it being kind of a pain in the ass game. It's going to be their first home game, so we'll see.
Yeah, we haven't seen the Giants yet because all the practices have been closed, and they don't play until tomorrow. They are the early Monday, how opening weekend they do 2 Monday night games. They're the early of the Monday night games against the Steelers. So we won't see them until tomorrow. And so it's going to be interesting for the Bears because they're going to go into this week not being able to look at film tomorrow. They're going to have to look at film on starting Tuesday of their opponent.
Mm-hmm.
And basically have a short week on that in that respect. But the good thing is I don't really believe in the Giants. The only thing for me is to fear is that Saquon Barkley is really good. And if they can't stop 200-year-old Adrian Peterson, they're really not going to be able to stop Saquon Barkley.
Yeah, you're going to need Akeem Hicks to really return to form. And, there are moments in this last game where we kind of saw where we miss Eddie Goldman. They held him pretty well last year when they played him at Soldier Field, but I have a feeling it might not be quite as easy this time around, but we'll see what happens. I think the Giants aren't terrible. They could give you a hard time, but I still think no matter what, they're a team that the Bears would ideally need to beat. You're going to need to beat some of these teams early on because your schedule is just going to get a bit more challenging as time goes on. And that's why today's win was so important. Yeah,
agreed. Yeah, definitely agree. But this opening schedule is not terrible. So, you got the win today, got that one out of the way. The Giants should be a winnable game. The Falcons didn't look particularly good today. They came back at the end, but the Seahawks just marched up and down the field on them.
Mm-hmm.
The Falcons don't have much of a defense. So that's a winnable game. And then the Colts lost to the Jaguars.
Yeah, that was something. And they lost Marlon Mack potentially for the year. That is a big loss.
And did you look at Gardner Minshew's passing stats?
I didn't see the stats. I just know he did some good things.
He completed passes to he only threw 20 pass attempts.
Mm-hmm.
And he completed them to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different receivers. So 10 different receivers in his 20 pass attempts, completed 19 of 20 for 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 173 yards, with a quarterback rating of 142.3.
Hey, that's making the most of your time, even if it's not a lot.
Yeah, so it's weird. I don't know how they won. I didn't see any of that game.
Well, Phillip Rivers threw some ill-timed picks.
Did he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I didn't see it. So I was like, how on earth did he only throw for 173 yards and their leading rusher only had... So they only had one running back actually run the ball. He ran 16 times for 62 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, 62 yards from running backs, 173 yards passing. You scored 27 points and won. I'm like, how the hell did that happen?
Magic.
And their leading receiver only had 47 yards receiving. So I was like, how the hell did that happen? It's like smoke and mirrors.
Hey, whatever gets it done, man.
Yeah. So I mean, that's who beat the the Colts. So you're like, I mean, would it surprise me if the Bears start 4-0? No, but if they play like they did the first three quarters, could they start 1-3? Absolutely.
Yeah, you don't want to have to come back from a 3-score deficit every game. You're not going to set that up and win every time. Let's just say that.
I don't know if this is true, but I heard that none of the defensive players came out to do interviews after the game, that they couldn't get any defensive players to talk. I saw maybe Dan Weeder tweeted that. So I didn't verify, but that's what I read. And so I was like, if that's the case, then that they're going to be pissed. And they're going to go in there and try to really clean this up and come out and try to, really kick the shit out of the Giants.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry yet about the defense, even though there are things that worried me today. I think their track record is good enough where, if they can't do it next week, then maybe I'll start to worry, but I won't worry yet. It's the offense. There's so many bad things that just continued from last year that this offense needs to figure things out.
Yep. Agreed.
Is there anything else you wanted to talk football-wise, or did you want to move on to baseball here?
I'm ready to move on to baseball because holy crap, what happened today?
So overshadowed by the Bears, we had a Cubs pitcher throw a no-no.
And it was Alec Mills. It wasn't Yu Darvish. It wasn't Kyle Hendricks. It was Alec Mills, a college walk-on. This was like the ultimate no-hitter story. A guy that not a lot of people outside Cubs fandom had heard of. He goes, throws a no-hitter on the road against the division rival. I mean, I couldn't believe it, because when the Bears game was getting really bad, I flipped over to the Cubs and they were scoring runs at will, and I was looking who was pitching. I'm like, oh, it's Alec Mills. And I'm like, he must be doing pretty good so far, right? So after the Bears win, I'm jumping up and down. I'm grabbing a beer. I'm putting on Bears post game on the radio. I says, all right, I'll flip back to the Cubs game. It's the seventh inning, and it's still, a shutout. So I'm like, all right, is Mills still in there? I'm like, oh, yeah, he's still in there, and his pitch count looks good. And then he gets the final out, and Len Casper says he's through 7. I'm like, all right, that must be in 7 shutout innings, and he's going to keep going. And then they show the score bug, and I see under the H column for Milwaukee, 0. I'm like, what? And then the 8th happens. And he gets through the 8th. And I'm thinking to myself, could this guy make history? And then, the cynical asshole in me says, oh, watch, with 2 outs, somebody's going to hit a little dribbler through a hole, and it's going to ruin it. And then it's the 9th, and within like 5 minutes from throwing his warm-up pitches, they're celebrating on the mound a no-hitter. I mean, that 9th inning was easy. He gets a pop-up in foul territory on a 1-0 pitch. He strikes out a guy on a fastball at 90 in. And then after going 3-0 to a guy, he gets a soft ground ball right up the middle where Baez was shaded perfectly, had plenty of time. And I was watching with my dad. We were going crazy. And I'm still high about this Bears win. I'm like, holy crap, after the Bears just won this great game, a Cub just threw a no-hitter.
And honestly, and this is the sad part here, is honestly more exciting to me than the no-hitter was the fact that the Cubs scored 12 runs on only one home run.
Well, thanks for the Brewers for helping out because they had 3 errors, and that really opened up the door, and they were able to keep that line moving and keep going, and that was a thing of beauty. And this came the day after Jason Hayward hits a go-ahead 3-run home run off Josh Hader.
And I want to preface before we talk about that game is leading up to it is the Cubs had gotten shut out the day before.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't score until the 9th inning of that game. So they didn't score for a long time. I mean, that's a lot of innings to not score.
Yeah, they went from going almost 2 games scoring 0 runs to the last 10 innings worth of hitting, scoring 16.
And if you actually want to, add it in, they didn't score in the 9th on the Reds game from Thursday. So they went 2 full games without scoring a single run. And they were going up against Josh Hader with a lefty. So he hadn't given up a home run all year, period. And I think I read he hadn't given up a hit to a lefty yet this season.
I think so. I'm not sure about that one, but his batting average against was like 0.54 in general.
Yeah. I mean, his career averages against is like 100, like 100 or 111 or something ridiculous.
And keep in mind the night before when the Cubs got shut out 1-0 on that walk-off, that Josh Hader pitched in that game too, and he just made the Cubs look like complete fools.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was insane. And, you have Jason Hayward, who has probably been the Cubs' second best hitter all year, and hits a home run and
smoked it.
Absolutely. I'm trying to find, let's see. In his career, Josh Hader's giving up a 115 batting average against left-handers. And he hadn't allowed a hit to a lefty all season long before Saturday, according to Yahoo Sports.
And of course, the one hit that he does is a go-ahead game-winning 3-run home run.
Yeah, not a single hit to a lefty. He's just basically is automatic against lefties. And Jason Hayward, earning that paycheck, just smokes it, and then followed up with another home run afterwards.
And that was a bomb.
And you get a Cubs win in where they literally, you were just like, all right, that's a loss, and they're going to lose the series to the Brewers.
Yeah, that was just huge. That moment was huge, and I just wish Jason Hayward would have done a big balls dance as he went around the bases.
That would have been amazing.
That would have been like the greatest thing ever. I mean, everything about that just defied the odds. And Josh Hader had already gotten out number 1. So he had 2 outs down by 2 against Josh Hader. Baez, who was struggling, singled. Rizzo, a lefty who has really struggled lately, he singled. So he gave up 2 hits to 2 lefties. A single and a home run.
Yep.
And then now we have Alec Mills.
And Alec Mills comes in. And so the Cubs go from, losing a series, they snatch a game, and then they come back and just dominate it and end up winning a series that, they honestly, they needed to win.
Yeah.
We're getting down to this stretch here, and the Cardinals have looked good, and you need to hammer this home. And granted, you don't need to win the division this year like you do other years, but you don't want to be faltering down the line. That's just, baseball is a game of winning the division and in the long game and the marathon, but then being primed and ready to do a sprint at the end during the playoffs. And that's kind of the thing. And you need to be hot going into the playoffs.
And you also didn't want to spark any more life in the Brewers like you'd had done the past 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, you would have left the Brewers right back into this I think they would have been tied for second if you would have lost these 2 games. Instead, you opened up a wider lead, and that was absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. You know what's funny is looking at this no-hitter versus the previous one that Jake Arrieta threw in 2016. The Cubs won these 2 no-hitters by a combined score of 28-0. I'd also like to add that Billy Hamilton got his first hit as a Cub today.
Yep.
And Billy Hamilton, because he came in and pinched run for Rizzo, he was gliding along the bases on Jason Hayward's 3-run home run. So a longtime Cub killer kind of nemesis, Billy Hamilton, it's kind of fun seeing him on our side for once.
It is a little bit nice. But yeah, looking at it is the Cubs have 12 games left. And they are 28-20. The only other team in the division that doesn't have a losing record is the Cardinals, and they're 20-20. And so, but based on the fact that the Cubs have 8 more wins, that winning percentage is so much higher than the Cardinals that it's looking tough for the Cubs to lose this division. But you've got a Sox series coming up still. You've got some Twins games. This is far from a lock, but if the Cardinals don't start going on a tear, they're gonna help make this easier.
Yeah, absolutely. The rest of your schedule is pretty tough outside playing the Pirates for 4. But as long as the Cubs just kind of stay afloat, then I'm not worried about them at all making the postseason, not in the slightest. But winning the division is most ideal. And, the Cardinals have a lot of games to make up in such a short amount of time. So we'll see what happens.
I think that's starting to take its toll on them. It's sure these are 7-inning games when they're playing double headers, but it's still 14-inning games every day.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah, even if they're 2 shorter games, that's like one big long one, basically.
Yeah. It's, your pitchers are not getting the rest that they need. Position players are getting tired. It's brutal for them, and I don't feel pity for them. They were the ones that spread COVID. It's not like they were the victims.
Now, that whole casino story, I've heard that's not true. I've heard there's no evidence. I've heard it is. I have no idea what's true and what's not.
I'm just going to assume it's true.
Okay. You're just going to say it.
I mean, here's the thing. If I make the assumption and I'm wrong, who cares?
Oh,
there's no ramifications on me, so I'm just gonna go ahead and assume. But yeah, let's see. We got 2 against Cleveland coming up. and then a 3 set against the Twins, 4 against the Pirates, and then 3 against the White Sox. So, you know, the Twins, I mean, watch, Cleveland is going to run roughshod on us. It depends on who from Cleveland we get pitching against us, because it could either be 2 tough games or these could be kind of easy breezies.
Yeah, exactly. If it's Shane Bieber, that's going to be tougher. If it's not, then, maybe you could get by. And Cleveland's kind of that team where they have really good stretches and then they lose like 5 or 6 in a row. So who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up the MLB probables here. Come on, stupid website. Carrasco versus Darvish in game 1. And game 2 will be Savali versus TBD for the Cubs. Savali is 3-5 with a 3.88 ERA. So yeah, we don't get Bieber. So very winnable series, which is nice because then we get the Twins, and hopefully we get bad Twins rather than good Twins.
Yeah, exactly. You never know with them either. Kind of going back to Alec Mills real quick. There's this great picture of him in a dugout where he's got his glasses on and his mouth is semi-open and he looks like Napoleon Dynamite sitting in the dugout. And I'm thinking, this guy just threw a no-hitter in the major leagues. How awesome is that?
It's funny. He looks like, looking at his face, I keep seeing these pictures where he looks like fat Greg Maddux, like in his face. Like he's not fat, but his face just like fat Greg Maddux.
Oh man, it's so cool when you see no hitters happen like this. It really is. I still can't believe it. It's been like 3-4 hours. I can't believe, we've been talking so much Bears. I'm like, yeah, a Cub just threw a no hitter today. Like, that's nuts. If this was any other day, not on a Bears Sunday, this would no doubt be the biggest story.
I know, it's funny. Like the Bears and the way the Bears game happened just absolutely overshadowed the Cubs performance today, which is, it's funny in some respects, but it's sad in another.
Yeah, I mean, if the Bears had just got blown out and lost, I mean, yeah, the anger over the Bears would obviously be the bigger story, one of the bigger stories with everything. But, the fact that they had this big comeback win, obviously Tuesday and Monday, the days after Bears games, like you go listen to the score, ESPN, it's mainly like Monday. You're mainly focusing on recapping the Bears game. And, it's like, oh, yeah, we got to find time to talk about a Cub throwing a no-hitter and making baseball history.
And just looking at the Cubs' upcoming schedule, so pitching matchups look good for the Cubs. So against Cleveland. And looking at the Twins, so I'm looking at the Twins. They absolutely crush everybody in Minnesota, and they're not very good on the road. So
sounds like the Cubs last year.
This is their home road splits. Away, they are 9-13 away from home. Home, they're 21-5. So these are at Wrigley, which, all right, so that's good news for the Cubs. The good news for the Pirates series is the Pirates are dog shit. But then I don't know what to say because, man, then they got the White Sox, who are just shaping up to be a juggernaut right now. I mean, They are just smashing everybody. They are 8-2 in their last 10. And they're not just winning at home. They actually have a better record on the road.
Yeah, with the White Sox, I don't know if I've seen dominating baseball like this. Obviously, 2016, you saw some stretches with the Cubs, but this is a level of domination that is just it's hard to believe. And the Sox fans out there are finally getting a treat to watch, and that's really good for them. So if they're going to get something good, you might as well get something as good as it gets, right?
Yeah, and the White Sox have been playing such great baseball. They just swept the Tigers, who, for whatever reason, have been doing fairly well this year. And they not only beat the Tigers, they won the series, outscoring them 23-5.
That'll play.
You've got Jose Abreu, who is just like, what else can you say about him? The guy's slash line is 317, 361, 619. He just got his 48th RBI in like 46 games. So if this was a regular season, he'd be on pace to have like 170 some RBIs. Like, to put that into perspective, the guy is absolutely crushing it. Again, you still have Tim Anderson, got that batting average to 362. Looking at their lineup today, so Anderson, Grandal, Abreu, Jimenez, McCann, Moncada, Mazzara, Mendick, and Dyson. And I'm just going to forget the last three guys. I'm just going to go from Anderson to Moncada. OPSs, 981, 806, 980, 915, 912, 752. And the 752 is Moncada, who, he went 3 for 4 today, but is just not being himself. But everybody else is just annihilating the baseball. And, you compare that to the Cubs, who only have 2 guys that can be anywhere in that ballpark as far as the OPS goes.
Well, look, I can say as a Cub fan right now, the White Sox are clearly a better baseball team, and I believe they're going to go further than we are. I just, these last 2 days have been great for the Cubs. They're likely going to the postseason. They have a great chance to win the division, but they're grinding out a lot of games. The White Sox are just flat steamrolling teams. Boy, I think, I know I'm getting way ahead of myself here, but I really feel like this core can win multiple World Series. Again, I don't know, but I feel like they really could.
And the funny part is there's gaping holes where they can improve. That's the scary part. The absolute scary part is they can bring up what's his name, their first baseman from
Vaughn?
the minor. Yeah, they could bring Vaughn up. So they've got him in the minors. You can absolutely move on from the salary of Encarnacion, who's been, pretty bad. Mazzara has been abysmal. You could move on from him and add another right fielder. Like, how hard is it to find a decent hitting right fielder? Like, that's like the easiest position to fill in baseball as far as hitting goes.
Yeah.
You're going to get a Moncada coming back next year, I'm sure, healthier and feeling better and hitting better. So it's like, and you're going to get better pitching next year from guys coming back that are healthy, guys coming back that opted out for the season, and some of the younger guys taking a step forward. So it's like, you've got improvements coming out the wazoo, or holes that you can have opportunity to plug. It's amazing that they're this good, and there's easy fixes I mean, as far as baseball goes, they're easy fixes that you can make.
Yeah, there are. This team is amazing. Like, this team is legit good. And, I got to say, as a Cub fan, I'm a little jealous of it. I truly am. This offense, this is something. I mean, this offense really is dominant. I mean, it is just flat dominant. And you expect them to just go out and score runs every day. And, they got off to a little slow start, but then once they clicked, and they have clicked. I think it's very possible they could go very deep this year, and they're going to be going deep for years to come. And, they could be the alpha in this city for a while. And again, I am saying this as a diehard Cub fan. And I'm kind of at the point where, as a Cub fan, I look at my team, I'm like, I just hope they could get in and just kind of steal their way to a long postseason run, because I look at the Cubs' inconsistencies and some of the stats, and I look at other teams like the Dodgers that are clearly better, or the Braves that are clearly better. And, some of those teams, I'm like, baseball's funny. You could get through it, where I see the White Sox and I see a team that can legit just kind of dominate their way to a run, even if not this year. When they get, I mean, who knows what will happen in the postseason? But I mean, my point is they're set up for a while. I mean, they truly built this right.
They really did, and I'm not mad at all. Like I'm excited to have Chicago. I would much rather have Chicago win something, even if it's not my Chicago team. I would much rather have Chicago win than some other crummy city. And
ultimate Chicago fan.
Yeah, and they, what we thought we were going to get with the Cubs when we saw 2015 things start to really make a sharp turn, and then 2016 they won it. I think we all thought we were going to have some sort of run like this.
I thought, yeah.
And it just didn't shape up like that. But it's looking much more like you're gonna see that with the White Sox. And just quickly looking at the free agents that are going to be part of the free agent market come December. I mean, that right field spot. I mean, you could bring in George Springer. You could bring in a Marcell Ozuna. I don't know if you necessarily want to bring in Ozuna, because do you want to have two shitty fielding outfielders? But
yeah, I mean, they'll give you the bat, but the glove, not so much.
But Marcell Ozuna can swing the stick. Can you imagine the lineup adding Marcell Ozuna into this as well with his 9-something OPS?
Best lineup in baseball, no question.
You would basically have almost the entire roster having an OPS of over 900. Let's see who else is. Could you bring in a lot of pitchers on the market? You could bring in a Jock Peterson. You could bring in a Yasiel Puig or a Jonas Cespedes, which I don't think you want to.
I don't think you want to bring in Jonas Cespedes.
I don't think you want to bring in either of those guys. But like I said, there's actually guys out there that you could go out and get. You have the money to do it. So it's scary to think that, that they're this good and they could just get better.
It is. I give all my hats to them. They are building something I truly think is going to be special for a long time.
I really do. I'm trying to think, looking at their, what else do we got here with the White Sox? Let's see. Tomorrow they got Cease pitching against the Twins, then Dane Dunning, then Lucas Giolito again. Let's see. So, I mean, they're already on a stretch. They've got some guys that they've got some, the pitchers that they've felt comfortable with coming in to their own. Eloy just hit his 13th home run of the season.
And you know what? I'm just going to openly admit that hurts.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
I know.
Honestly, what are you going to do? Let's see. What else do we have here? We still have Dallas Keuchel out. I thought I saw Gio Gonzalez is going to get activated or was activated.
Yeah, I saw that too.
I mean, I don't know what that really helps you at this point, but at least it's another pitcher. Yeah. Let's see. Carlos Rodon. Thought he was. What's the latest with him here? Oh, he just got transferred to the 45-day.
Jeez.
Yeah, so he'll be eligible to return before the end of the season and and he would probably be a reliever. So can't really, and that sucks because last time we talked that he was about to start a bullpen session. And I see it today. It says he was transferred to the 45-day disabled. So that's not good. As far as Carlos Rodon, I don't know if it necessarily impacts the White Sox because, as a team, they've been in a rhythm anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, as we saw with the Cubs, sometimes you bring back these pitchers from a long injury and they just look like rusty poop coming out and it really slows down some of your momentum.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we saw that with Quintana and Chatwood where they just both look like white dog shit. Because we know white dog shit is the grossest kind of dog shit for some reason. Just is. So yeah, you just, you worry that Carlos Rodon coming back doesn't give them the boost. It gives them, kind of halts the momentum. So we probably won't see that. If we do see him, it'll be right at the end of the season and probably coming out of the bullpen. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, not really. I mean, there's not much to talk about the Bulls or Blackhawks right now. Nothing's really happening. So I got nothing on that. Just waiting to see who that new coach is going to be.
Yeah, we'll see there. Yeah, I don't even know who's officially. I mean, I've read so many lists of who the Bulls should be bringing in, but I haven't seen anything official at all of who they're going to talk to or who's even going to be scheduled to be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the hot new name now is Donovan.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I don't know. I get it. He's a pretty good basketball coach, and coming from the college ranks, he's a teaching guy that can teach. And that's kind of what you have to be a college coach and have success there. So you've already had somebody be the guinea pig of his transition to the NBA. So with a young team, is it necessarily a bad option? No. But is he the option? Is he going to be the guy that takes you to the promised land, or is he the guy that sort of gets you to the next level where you got to go out and get the next guy? Like, is he your Ricky Renteria?
I hope they at least find a coach that can help develop the young talent. That's what I want.
I want that too. If you had my druthers, it would be bringing in somebody that has the experience of growing young players and grows himself into being a really good coach, and the team grows with him. And then by the time the young players are ready to be a force that, he's he's developed as a head coach and is ready to help them take the next step that way. But that's an ideal circumstance, and I don't know if that's necessarily reality either.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, Billy Donovan, if they brought him in, I wouldn't be mad. I wouldn't be like excited. There's some of these assistant coaches that kind of have me excited. So I don't know. I'm gonna trust in this. I'm gonna trust in AK that he's going to do what's right, and I'm gonna go into next season just being like, all right, this is who we are, and ride with him. Yep, right on. It's nice to trust your front office now. Yeah, I don't feel like we're gonna. I out of all the things I didn't trust Garpax to do, I think number one on that list would be hiring head coaches. Yeah. Like, that has just not been their forte. So with AK, I'm feeling like I trust him, and we'll go from there. Same here. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. We had a lot to talk about. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. I saw a few people posting pictures of them watching the YouTube version of the podcast, which is far and away the least number of views we have. But I guess that's why we put it up there. If we get one person enjoying it, it's worth the 2 minutes of uploading the video. But share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. Thank you guys again so much. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears! Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.